When it was done, Jason exited his room, finding no one in the hallway. He looked back into his room. It was empty now. Downstairs, he found Megan in the living room. She was wringing her hands together, worrying her shirt something fierce. Jason could tell she was trying not to cry. "Hey," he said. Megan whirled around, her eyes wide. The moment their eyes locked, she knew, and that's when she burst into tears. Jason went to her side and hugged her. She clung to him, and for a long time, they stayed that way. When she calmed down, they sat on the couch together. She turned to him, her eyes bleary and red. "Why?" she said. "Why didn't you choose to forget like everyone else? Didn't you want to be free like Kyle, Sophie, and Amber?" "I do want to be free," Jason said, smiling at her. She did not smile back, her eyes searching his. "And I don't blame them for choosing to forget." "Then why?" Megan said. Now Jason looked down at his knees, becoming a bit embarrassed. "Because," he said at last, "then you would have been all alone." Megan's breath hitched, and she sounded close to tears again. Jason looked at her. "I'm sorry," he said quickly. "I didn't mean to make you upset." She didn't answer, at least not with words. Before Jason could get another apologetic word out, she had leaned forward and kissed him. Jason had never kissed a girl before. He had thought about it many times, and it exceeded his expectations and surprised him. He was elated, confused, and exhilarated. Then she pulled away, and mostly what was left was the confusion. Megan had the grace to look embarrassed herself. "I'm sorry. That was rude of me," she said. No, it's okay," Jason said. Was it? He didn't know. He'd always thought of Megan as a friend, though, as he looked at her now, he actually found her more attractive than he had in the past. He shook his head, wanting to focus. "Are you okay?" She looked at him, blinking. Then, to his further confusion, she started laughing. "I'm sorry," she said between giggles. "I'm just kind of emotionally a wreck right now. I had fully expected you to end up like the others. I thought I had accepted that I was going to be alone, but I'm actually so glad. No, I'm extremely happy you chose to remember. I didn't know how much I needed to not be alone in this." She beamed up at him. "I got caught up in the moment," she said. "I was just so grateful and relieved." She grabbed his hand, her tone softening. "I'm not alone." Jason saw what her dilemma had been more clearly now. He thought of the loneliness he had felt during the past few months. Even though they didn't visit together as much, it was comforting to know his friends were sharing in a similar struggle. It helped ease the sense of loneliness in his own life. Little did he know that they were leaving him behind in order to regain a phantom of their old, normal lives. Now, it was just him and Megan left. Even the parents, the ones remaining, had chosen to forget as well. This Megan told him later on. "So what happens now?" Jason said. "How do we live with everything we know?" Megan gave a shrug and yawned. "I don't know, but right now, all I want to do is sleep." Jason thought that was a perfect answer. To him, it meant taking things one day at a time. She leaned her head on his shoulder. Before he knew it, she was snoozing. He watched her face, serene and peaceful. He envied that peace. For so long, he had dreaded sleeping. Then again, he dreaded being awake. He just dreaded life. Could being together like this really save him from his own suicidal thoughts? Despite his mind turning every which way, his eyes began to droop. He didn't realize how tired he himself was. His eyes closed, and then he was asleep too. For the first time in a long time, he rested and had no dreams at all. When they awoke, a blanket had been laid on them. Jason had a note from his mom in his hand. It read, "We need to have the talk, son. Love you." Jason and Megan looked at each other after reading the note and then both laughed. "Talk about a misunderstanding," Jason said. Megan looked at him with a strange shimmer in her eyes. He didn't know exactly what she was trying to express. She was always such a mystery to him. A little while later, after pilfering his mother's kitchen for lunch, they were sitting at the table, eating sandwiches. Jason had a question on his mind. "So, did the stranger say anything to you about what happened?" he said. "Like, did he explain anything to you?" She gave him a wan smile. "Sure," she said in a conspiratorial tone, turning up her nose at him. "He told me lots of things." "Spill it," Jason said. Megan chomped her sandwich with a wolfish grin. Her eyes had a mischievous glint. They were distracted by a knock at the door. Sophie, Kyle, and Amber's faces peered in. Jason waved them inside. "Hey," Kyle said with caution. "Everything all right?" "Yeah, we were worried," Sophie said, looking from Jason to Megan with an inquisitive glance. "You guys are eating without us," Amber said, annoyed. "How rude." Then there was silence, and everyone turned to Jason. Would he run away again? That seemed to be what they were all thinking. He finished his bite and smiled. $5 sandwiches all day long. "Who's buying?" he said. There was some laughter and jeering. Then they were all eating together, and things were back to normal. Almost. As they settled into the afternoon, Megan and Jason kept sharing little looks. At one point, their hands met under the table, and their fingers meshed together. This secret, this burden was theirs now, and they would hold it for the sake of their friends, both alive and gone. As long as they were not alone, they knew they could muster the strength to endure their haunting pasts. Jason's nightmares lessened, and it wasn't long until he asked Megan to be his girlfriend. Life was something good again. It wasn't perfect or easy. There were hard days when he wanted to give up. Megan was always there to help pick himself up again. In turn, he was there for her in her times of need. After all, even as a mere phantom, the moving house was still a part of his life, a part of his dreams. Time and patience and company helped, but in the end, the wounds from that darkness never fully healed. Yet, there was something else that caused Jason some restlessness, a thought that came to him at the quietest moments. The stranger's book, the Codex Occultum. Jason couldn't help but wonder just what other horrible nightmares were out there. Surely nothing as terrible as the moving house, at least he hoped.